Welcome to another edition of Insurance Questions Podcast. Number 125, Don. Can you believe it?
It's crazy. No, I can't believe it.
It's not Insurance Day, though. What is today, Sarah?
It is Tax Questions Podcast.
And all the comments and statements by Eddie Buffalo, Donnie Lowe, and Sassy Sarah are totally for entertainment purposes.
Oh, like, subscribe, share, follow, do all the things on all the. Sorry, I got an email from my client and
God, please help me get through this show without killing Sarah.
Bug
Please.
Eddie on TikTok.
Please.
Do all the things on all the places, and we are coming up with some really good information. So great, yeah.
Hit the fan mail button. Right, hit the fan mail button. Send your email questions. The TikTokers. Eddie does love those TikToks coming through with questions, and just like and subscribe, like Sarah said.
We thank everybody for tuning in. Thursday should be a fun show. We are going to do Potluck Thursday with Donnie Lowe, the rock and roll edition. So
looking forward to that one.
Make sure, I'm sure it's going to be fun. So how's everybody doing? How was the weekend?
Great. It was good.
It went
a
by
lot
fast.
of pet issues. I was filling Donnie in. Apparently, my poodle got into some marijuana from contractors fixing the fence because that's the only way she would have gotten it. And she was high off her balls. And
how does she have balls if it's a girl dog?
Trust me, just because of how high she was, she grew.
Are you sure it's a girl dog?
Yeah. But I had to run her to the emergency vet because, we're trying to turn her into a service dog, and I was like freaking out that it was something else. And yeah. So, and then our other dog is sick. So yeah. Apparently they're acting like children and draining me dry of finances.
Yeah, they could do that. That's crazy.
That's why so many people are buying pet insurance now. It sounds like such a crazy thing, but
yeah,
people are doing that.
I know.
And it's really beneficial. Back when I was starting out my career, I worked in vet clinics for a while. And it's very great if you know that your dog's going to be sick, or in case of emergency, if you can have extra money to put towards it. And I was planning on doing that. I just haven't with my dogs. So.
Hey, yeah, any idea on where Sarah can go to get pet insurance?
www.ebiagency.com. If I don't sell it directly, I'll find somebody.
I'm so glad I know a guy.
That's right.
Yeah, you know a guy.
So what have you got for us today, Sassy Sarah?
So I'm going to do the history of the tax code. Ooh. And I'm going to try to make it very interesting because, you hear about taxes, everybody's like, meh. But I think it's important when you understand why things are the way that they are. Because you can't suggest changes if you don't understand it.
I'm sorry. I got to object to this. You said it's the history of tax code. This is so freaking unfair. He's been around when they invented taxes. So he's going to know all the answers. And that's
I'll keep my mouth shut.
Okay. That is okay. Donnie will get 100% on the quiz.
It's cheating. That's cheating just because he's old. That's bull.
Man, oh man, the pressure's on now for sure.
What kind of got me into that is I'm always a type of person to review how something works. So in accounting, in tax, or in business in general, even with employees, some are just tell me the job, I'll do the job from, let's say, F through H. I don't care about the other pieces that I don't see. And I've always been, I want to see all of it. Okay, either he muted himself or he just showed
At least you're muted. I hope you know that, Ed. You're
which
muted.
Is fantastic. No, I think he's on a call. He's taking a call.
Oh,
anyway,
maybe.
So I've always been, I want to know everything, how everything is influenced. To me, it made me a better accountant because I knew if I made changes in the system, how did it affect the people who handle inventory or the sales department? Like, how does it affect everyone else?
Right.
So that's just, I always like being able to also provide that information as well. So we're going to start off with, and then I was going to show, I got this book for anybody who watches this on YouTube. It's United States Income and War Tax Guide. When I acquired the business that we got in January, with a whole slew of clients, he gave me this book and said this was the first printed tax code book, which was printed in 1917.
I was going to say 1917, World War I.
1917. So, but
is that when you were a teenager or your 20s, Don?
I was young.
Yeah.
I was in my formative years.
Here's a question, though. What year did the United States actually start signing into law in order to raise revenue? What year do you think it was? And I can take range, or if you think it's around a certain time frame.
1892.
No, I think it was in the 1780s.
Okay, you're a little too far, Donnie. It was 1862.
And
it was President Lincoln signed it in law for the Civil War to help cover Civil War. And it was a 3% tax if you made between $600 and $10,000, and 5% tax on everything over $10,000.
Wow. See, I was thinking it was implemented to help pay for the cost of the Revolutionary War afterwards.
I mean, did you get into a lot of trouble, Don, when you threw all that tea into Boston Harbor?
They never caught me.
Oh, you were dressed up like an indigenous person. Is that why? Look at me being PC and everything, right?
I
know, right? Well, and here's something. This is back when Congress worked for the American people. In 1867, Congress opposed the income tax and actually did tax cuts. And from 1868 until 1913, 90% of all revenue came from liquor, beer, wine, and tobacco taxes.
Wow.
Liquor? Don't even know her.
I should have known that. I should have said alcohol. And then in 1872, income tax was repealed. So it was taken away. It was gone with, right?
Beautiful.
However,
can I just ask you something? And I'm not being a smart. So if they were already taxing booze and making money off it, what happened to Prohibition? Did they lose all that tax money?
I would assume they did, because then it turned into illegal, unless they had the law at the time that stated you must report all illegal activities.
Oh, that's there again. You know, you
cover
can
the bases.
Just make sure you tell them.
Yes. And here's a question. So it was a particular president in 1894 that revived the income tax and created the Internal Revenue Service. Which president was it?
Say again. Can you say that one more time?
1894.
In 1894, which president revived the income tax and created the Internal Revenue Service? It was actually the Bureau of Internal Revenue.
Adams.
1894?
I just watched Hamilton a while ago, so shut up, Don.
It had to be the president right before William McKinley, and I can't think of who that is. I'm lost.
It was Woodrow Wilson.
Good old Woody.
1894?
And he did it with the Wilson Tariff Act.
He wasn't the president in 1894?
Whoa.
Which president?
Are you guys going to fight?
Well, because Wilson was the president during World War I.
He was not, but it was the Wilson Tariff Act, and he's the one that came up with that.
Throwing down with you, Donnie. You going to take that?
So my apologies. That question was not clear because he was not acting president.
That's right. That was a trick question.
Later.
Uh,
It was.
See, I might ask questions. They ain't trick questions, though. All right.
I know it's already a trick question because it has to do with taxes, right? So,
Right.
and in 1909,
When Donnie was in his 30s.
President Taft recommended Congress make an amendment, a constitutional amendment, to give the government the power to tax incomes without burdening the states with population. So just a general income tax. And it levied 1% tax on net corporate incomes of more than $5,000.
Now, that levy that they did they take the Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry?
Yes, because that's why it started expanding into more tax rates.
Don, are you a painting today? Because you're not even moving. It's like, is that just a picture of Don? Is he actually alive?
I didn't want to interrupt. The levee was dry, but them good old boys were drinking whiskey and rye. That's, I mean.
I know, right? She loves it when you interrupt, so keep doing it, Don.
Okay, so in 1913, of course, there was another war threat. And then there was Wyoming was the last state that was needed to ratify the 16th Amendment. And basically, they took an adoption of a 1% tax on personal income, net personal income of more than $3,000, and a surtax of 6% on incomes of more than $500,000. Now, think this is back in 1913. How much?
Imagine how much $500,000 was back then. Holy.
Hold on, I'm gonna Google it. 500,000 in 1913 and today's.
I bet you Daddy Warbucks had the most money. Annie's dad.
In today money, 500,000 would be $15,867,424.24.
How many gold bars would that buy you back then, Sarah?
A lot. A lot.
You were born at the wrong time, Don.
I know.
Stuff like that. So anyways, they also cut the corporate income tax. So remember the one that was done in 1909 got away with. And the first form of 1040 was introduced. So it was that
1913.
you used to just pay all of your money in. Then they introduced a form for you to actually fill out and submit. So your 1040, your personal tax return form was completed. I am going to do some research because now I'm curious of what that first form looked like because it is not nowhere near where today is.
That's true.
In 1918, which I found from this amazing book that was in 1917, there was a progressive income tax structure because of World War I of up to 77%.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
And then here we go. 1919, states ratify the 18th Amendment barring the manufacturing, sale, or transport of intoxicating beverages.
That was in 1919, you said?
1919.
Wow.
The states did. So this wasn't
right before Prohibition.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's... Yeah.
And Congress passed the Volstead Act that gave the Commissioner of the Internal Revenue the primary responsibility of enforcement of prohibition.
Crazy.
That's pretty awesome. And then 11 years later, it went to the Department of Justice. So that answers your question.
Can I ask Donnie a question, Sarah? So,
sure.
Does it bother you that you're older than most of these laws that we're speaking of this morning?
No, I have a good sense of history and remembrance.
Nice. I just wanted to make sure we weren't making you upset.
No,
right.
I'm good.
Continue, Sassy Sarah.
So, and this is where it goes into, it doesn't tell me when you had to report illegal activities. So I'm going to have to do further research to determine when that was, because in 1931, that's when they created the IRS intelligent unit, which provided undercover agents which caught Al Capone. And remember, his main thing was tax evasion for not reporting the illegal income made from bootlegging liquor. And then in 1933, Prohibition, of course, was repealed for those who don't know. And the IRS again started taxing, of course, all alcohol and then the National Firearms Act was created to create tobacco tax enforcement as well.
So,
two other cool things happened in 1933, Don. Do you know what it was? Ed Bednar Sr. was born and King Kong came out.
That was 1933?
Mm-hmm. Oh, you don't think I know when my father was born? What's wrong with you?
You never know.
Well, it's funny because you said that and I didn't hear the senior part. And I'm like, Eddie, I doubt you were born in 1933.
Hey, that's the nicest compliment you ever gave me, Sarah.
I'm just saying.
I'll take
For
that.
all the people who don't have ADHD, your brain comes up with some weird things that you hear, and it makes such an amusing line. Just because you'll just hear something, you're just like, I need you to repeat that because I know what I heard is not what you said. And I will tell you what I said in a moment. Yeah. It's funny. And I'm not going to go through every single one of these because, of course, you can go to the IRS website and it literally lists out everything. I'm just hitting the key parts. And the early parts to me are more interesting because of how it got started, what all the changes were. And of course, there were always amendments and adjustments and deductions were added and signed into law and taken away. And that's what kind of creates our tax law now.
All right. So let me get this straight. The original tax was alcohol, tobacco, firearms.
Mm-hmm.
Then they took that away.
Mm-hmm.
Then they instituted the revenue tax,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then they added the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms tax, but they kept the revenue tax.
Yes.
So, come on. Let's get rid of.
That's the funny part because especially when I was doing the introductory to accounting classes, everybody's like, oh, well, this is broken. Okay, but tell me why it was created for you to tell me how it was broken and how you suggest to fix it. So if you don't understand how it works, like this was literally made. The IRS code was originally started to just help during war times. And then it was to tax all the stuff really we shouldn't be putting in our bodies anyways. But now we have big lobbies that come against it. And now those taxes aren't as high as they were at the beginning. Then you had the prohibition come through, which got rid of that. And then you have corporate tax that came through and that got rid of. And then it just stayed on the individual. So I always, when I have these conversations with people, it's when they talk about taxing the rich or taxing corporations or whenever they start, I'm going to tax a specific group. Mm-hmm. It's like, yeah, but that's how it starts.
Yeah.
And then it devolves. So
Sarah says, let them eat cake.
Exactly.
There's a tax on that, because you're not supposed to eat cake.
And I'm very disappointed in you, Don, that you didn't sing your song when she gave you that opening. Tell me why. God, you're so much better than me. Tell me why.
Oh my goodness.
So, and here's I'm going to list off a few more. So, 1942, the Revenue Act was created. Guess what the name of the Revenue Act is called?
Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe.
The Revenue Act of 1942. So they can come up with all the tax laws, but they are not creative in the names.
That's right. Unlike today.
That was called by President Roosevelt the greatest tax bill in American history, and it was passed by Congress. It increased taxes and the number of Americans subject to the income tax. You also got deductions for medical care, medical and investment expenses.
That's crazy.
which is interesting. And then
How nice of him to think of the whole
1943
country,
Yeah.
Yes.
including the whole country, every citizen.
They didn't discriminate, Don.
That's right.
Absolutely not. God bless
So-
America.
1943, Congress passed a Tax Payment Act. What do you think that concerned? Think of what we have nowadays with all the taxes. What do you think that one specifically dealt with?
Payroll deduction of taxes.
Booze and
Payroll
cigarettes.
deduction taxes.
Booze and cigarettes.
Nope. It was the employers were required in 1943 to withhold taxes from the employees' wages and remit them quarterly. So that's when payroll taxes started, was 1943. And then in 44, just a year later, more standard deductions started, or the standard deductions was placed on the 1040 form. So you had a new act. And then, see, this is why I can't just skip around, because the next one is always just as interesting to me. This is why I'm in the field that I'm in.
I'm on the edge of my
sorry for those
seat.
who are
I
getting
can't wait to
mortified.
hear the next tidbit, Sarah. This
Oh, I
text
know.
is Great.
Good one, Ed. Good one.
Like that.
So here's a good one. So 1952, President Truman wanted to kind of fix everything, right? So his reorganization plan, number one, so apparently there was more after that. If you want to know, Google President Truman and figure out what all those are. Basically, he replaced the patronage system at the IRS with a career civil service system. Which, do you know what that means, Eddie?
It's the
Yeah,
bureaucracy.
neither do I. I'm Googling that because I think it's more of they're supposed to do civil service for individuals. Okay, here we go. So the patronage system was more of whoever won the election could place people in the IRS. Instead, it was you applied, you got the job. It doesn't matter who's in power.
Hey, it's kind of like all the guys in South Buffalo. Hey, my cousin's in politics. I got a job.
That's right. You want to work in City Hall?
Yeah. Did you come to that benefit?
That's right.
Yep.
How many tickets
And
did you sell?
then
Right.
1953, Eisenhower changed the name because this was important to do. Instead of Bureau of Internal Revenue to the Internal Revenue Service. I don't understand how that made
That
sense.
changed.
Did
so
they
much.
service us? The revenue,
Did they
Internal Revenue Service? Who are they a service to?
They bend you over and service you.
They're-
John. That's what
They're
they do.
supposed to. Let me rephrase that. There used to be departments of the IRS years ago that people could call for complicated tax returns and ask questions and get answers.
Ah,
They shut that system down.
so they don't service any longer.
Whether it was because of people were getting misinformation from that department and try to use that as an excuse in tax court, or just trying to generate as much revenue as possible. It's however you want to look at it. But it's supposed to be for the people, not basically whoever's in power to make decisions. We'll see how that goes. And then 1954. So here's the thing. The whole time we've been talking, all taxes were due March 15th. This is where it changed from March 15th to April 15th, which is why some business returns are due on March 15th, and then you have April 15th. And then for those who have businesses who haven't filed, there's a chance that September 16th is when your tax return is due. That's when the extensions run out. Or you have April 15th if you haven't filed your personal return yet. FYI.
So it was the Irish tax, because 2 days before St. Paddy's Day, they weren't gonna pay the taxes anyway, so they moved it to April. It's the Irish tax. That's what it's for.
Well, there you go.
Be
We'll
honest.
call it that. We'll call it that.
And I'm
Here's-
drinking 2 days before
Here's
my
a
taxes.
question that I'm
Yeah.
hoping Donnie gets correct, and that's because you like to make fun of his age all the time. Donnie, what year do you think the IRS instituted its first toll-free telephone site?
1972.
No, I'm thinking it was in the early 60s.
You're close. 1972 is when the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms moved to its own bureau. And you said what year? 19?
I said in the early 1960s. No, you know what?
1960.
Gotta be more specific, Don. You can't just paint with a broad stroke like that.
All
I
right.
gave her actually dates, all right? And you,
All right.
I don't know, sometime in the past. I'm
1965.
guessing that's what
You are correct, Donnie.
There you go.
1965.
There you go.
happened. He was Googling it. That's some
No,
right
No,
there.
I didn't. Because I figured it was
Okay.
not through Kennedy's administration. It
Hey,
was
Siri, when was blah, 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 blah? That's
No.
what Donnie was doing
It
in
was
his head.
through-
He's got
it was
Siri
through-
in his head.
LBJ's
Whoa, 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 whoa. Watch that language.
Lyndon
Watch that
Baines
language, Donnie.
Johnson and Lady Bird Johnson. It was under his administration.
Wow.
Yep.
Did you go to high school with them? You seem to know an awful lot.
They were in grammar school when I was in high school.
You babysat them. That's why you knew that stuff. How much you could pay back then for babysitting? A nickel? And did you have to claim taxes on that, Sarah?
Oh my goodness. Depending on the year, and if it was way back when a nickel was a lot of money, I would assume yes.
You better pay that taxes,
if it was
Donnie.
under $600 in today's money, probably not, because that's the limit as a contractor.
They were wooden nickels, though. They were wooden.
And I wouldn't know what to tell you because I've never seen wooden money, but I will let you guys figure that one out.
You've never seen or heard of a
wooden
wooden
teeth like George Washington.
So, and then here we go. So, in 1986, this is where a lot of the changes of what we see now took place. Electronic filing began, but it was very limited. So, if you think of now, the IRS is rolling out where people with basic
What'd you do,
tax
fax it?
return, there was probably an office or you mailed it in.
That's crazy.
I don't entirely know. More than likely it was mail. And then what you have is, you just threw me off.
So if you were a girl, you couldn't file? You could only be male?
It depends. And I'm just going to say that because maybe the
That's
next
a
time
good question.
Because you keep throwing me off, dude. Stop.
You're catching on to our lines. It depends.
Anyways, so President Reagan signed the Tax Reform Act, and it's basically been the most significant piece for the 30 years, right? Mm-hmm. It contained 300 provisions that took 3 years to implement. So this was the largest by far part of the tax code that was developed.
Yeah, but it reduced the tax rate significantly.
Yeah, so the situation that the IRS has a lot of complication to the tax code. And some people are like, oh, well, it's too complicated. However, you could go to the IRS website, no matter your situation, and find the information that deals specifically with what you're going through. You just have to know where to find it, or have a really knowledgeable tax person on your side who can provide that guidance for you.
Do you happen to know anybody in that arena?
Maybe the number one person on the partner page.
There you go. There you go.
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. What'd you say?
So, and that's the one thing a lot of people have issues with is they will go find someone and either not want to pay the money for a good person or not want to take the advice, or they just pick someone who's just really bad. You have to really do your due diligence, because I've seen people who come to us as a firm and they're like, oh yeah, I was told XYZ. Now, whether that person gave them that incorrect information or there was a communication issue and they were given the correct information and yet they did the wrong thing, that's up to debate.
It could have been a communication breakdown, basically.
Correct. I never want to say it's always on the preparer who does the issue. I've seen it in my industry. And so that's just something to keep in mind is you want to make sure you find someone who wants to help you save, do the deductions, knows the tax code. If not, someone in the company can help you. And that it's a good fit. You don't want to be with someone who, I've also heard this, unfortunately, with the firm that I acquired this year. A few actual clients felt talked down to. Mm-hmm. Like if they were felt to feel as if they weren't intelligent enough to understand it. And that always breaks my heart because, I'm trying to build the firm where we're serving our clients. I serve the employees. Like this is the whole thing where we take an account to everything. It's not, right. Oh yeah, you're just paying this bill. That's great. No, it's you're paying this bill. We're really grateful and we want to help you be successful. Yeah. Whether that's in accounting because you're running a business or just in the taxes. We want you to be successful in what you're doing. So just make sure you find a good fit for you. And then
for those that are listening only, you cannot see that Eddie just shut off his screen. My guess is he's probably taking a bite of a sandwich or something. I don't know.
Pop-Tart. What are you
or Pop-Tart. Yeah. Might be his lunch. I don't know.
Yes.
So, sorry to interrupt, Sassy Sarah.
No. That's good.
Chuckles, I was blowing my nose. I have sinus issues today. Okay. So back off, all right?
You could have gone with a sandwich or Pop-Tart.
Don't judge me.
We're in a judgment-free zone.
Yeah. And then 1992, if you owed money to the IRS, you can file electronically. So it was the people who didn't owe money could, basically, if you were asking for a refund, they wanted you to mail the return. So it took longer to get to
exactly.
them. That's not what it says. That's what I'm saying. Just because, that makes sense. If I owe somebody money, I take the longest way to get it to where I have to.
It was in the fine print.
All you IRS people out there, all these comments are solely from Sassy Sarah. I love you guys. You guys are awesome.
The IRS has some amazing people who work for it. It's like with any other company.
That's
you're
right.
You're going to love some people. You're going to hate some people. It all comes down to who you.
I think the IRS is awesome. They are fantastic. The IRS. I love them so much.
Mm-hmm. I know why you're saying that.
Ed,
anyway,
you got something on your nose. It looks like it's brown or something. You better wipe that.
Right? 1998. Congress restructured the IRS, so that's why we have.
That's when you were born, Sarah, isn't it?
98? No, you're like a few years off. I was 14. Thank you very much.
But did you play tax preparer when you were a little girl? Because that's what you wanted to be.
No, I didn't know what I wanted to be. I was all over the place. It is what it is.
She played the IRS.
If anybody ever wants to know. I was going to go into veterinary medicine, and then I didn't want to go to college as if I was going to be a doctor for animals, and then I was going to be a vet tech and found out that's not where money is to support a family, and then I ended up in accounting. It's a really roundabout way of how I started my career.
I thought they make a lot of money.
No, technicians who work at the vet offices do not. And when I was looking into it, you got capped at like $15 an hour. And
you were looking in the wrong places.
Probably.
Wow, he's awful judgy today, isn't he? He's awful judgy today, Sarah. You do whatever you want, honey. Whatever makes you happy.
Right? Yeah. Well, and it's okay. So this is the part of where I geek out. The reason I picked accounting was I used to play this game. And again, remember, undiagnosed with ADHD for over almost 40 years now. So I found ways to amuse myself and keep myself entertained in very boring situations. One of them was if I saw words, I would reorganize the words and make as many words from that one word as possible. So think of like words with friends.
That's a great game, Boggle.
Yeah, it is, right? The other one is I would look at the clock And I would take the numbers, and you could only do the properties once, but you could add, multiply, subtract, or divide, and you try to get all the numbers to one number, and it had to be a prime number.
Ooh.
So,
You
and
are.
I was like,
thought
when I was
beat.
trying to figure out what to
You
go
got
with,
me
I'm like,
beat.
maybe the accounting is the right field for me.
So give us an example of your clock game.
Right?
Give us an example of your clock game.
Oh God, I haven't done it in years, but like now it's 12:30 and here in Texas. So you would take the 3, add the 0, so my addition would be gone, and then I have the 1 and the 2. So I would multiply the 3 and the 2, which would give me 6, and subtract the 1, which would give me 5, and 5 would be the lowest I could go.
Oh,
So
I would say 1 and 2 equals 3. Done.
Well,
right,
I
but I
gotta
didn't want to make it 0, so I always try to get to. Yeah,
If we ever try to do the
I had
home
rules
version of
within my
insurance,
rules of my game.
if we ever try to do the home version of Insurance Questions podcast, you guys are not in charge of it. That's horrible. So bad.
Anyways, so 1998 is when they separated everything, which is why you have the personal department and the business department. And in the business department, it's broken up by how you file. The 2001 is when you started getting the mid-year tax refund program so that you could get advance payments to a tax rate reduction. Interesting. And then 2003 is when the increase in the child tax credit got increased. So, and electronic, again, I'm dorky. Electronic filing went up to 52.9 million tax returns in 2003, and 40% was individual returns.
Wow.
So, I mean, just think of how many the returns are filed on a regular basis. So 40%, that's 21,160,000 returns in that 1 year.
2003?
2003. And for those who don't know, you don't have to file unless you make over a certain amount. Now, let me rephrase that. If you are working a job that they're taking the payroll taxes out, like federal income tax, let's say you work one big job and they took some money out. Even if you're under that threshold, you might want to look into filing, especially if it's a free program, because you're probably due a refund.
Right. What is that threshold now? Do you know?
Let me look at 2024. They always increase it. It moves with the standard deduction in the tax rates and so, for example, in 2003, if you were head of household under 65, it was 20,800.
That's interesting.
If you're single, it was 13,850. So, and that's the thing that gets me, and it's like my brain can never retain it, is because depending on your filing status, depending on your age, depending on if you're single, married filing jointly, married filing separately, head of household, over 65, if you're blind, all of that starts changing all the freaking numbers. And I'm like, I'm good with numbers. I like numbers. My brain will not retain all of that year by year as it increases.
Yeah.
You
know what? You look it up when you have to.
How many kids do you have, Sarah?
I just have the 2.
So you're good at multiplying.
Oh.
Yeah. Not multiplying large numbers. That was a good one, Eddie. No, you were saying, Donnie?
Just throw that out the window. No, what I was saying was when you need to get the information for a client, then that's when you have the information. You look it up.
Yes. I know the important information. It's just because it changes and it's so specific on the scenario, it's just easier for me to wait until I get someone there.
Yeah.
I do have people who can rattle it off the top of their head, and I'm like, that is fantastic. That's where your skill set is, not where mine is. Any other questions? Because that's pretty much it. You guys survived my history lesson.
Woo.
Hopefully, our listeners are not bored to tears.
And it's the magic time that you wanted to spend on it.
Yes, it is.
And I don't know. Ed, anything to say, or do you need to swallow first?
I'm speechless. It was such a riveting episode. You know what? I think what I'm going to do, instead of listening to music at the gym, as soon as this is available on Spotify or any of the other outlets that we have, I'm just going to listen to it on a loop.
There you go. And then I can quiz you even more of like, what year did this happen? And you're going to be like, it was this.
Like I said, I just think it was totally unfair because, you know, Donnie lived during the time that most of these laws were enacted. So I think that's bull. That's not fair to me.
I mean, you did have the Googles available as well.
The Googles. Sounds like it's a disease. Oh my God, Sarah. I don't know what happened to her. She's got the Googles.
It sometimes feels like that.
Bad. Bless her.
Rash.
I read an article, and listeners, do not hold me to this. I remember bits and pieces because I've slept since I've read it. But I think that they were going to try to go after Google because Google has the internet, all search history. They have that. They're breaking out into advertisement. All these key components that no one can compete with. And they're like, you're a monopoly. You need to stop.
I mean, don't hold me to this, you know, but I think Google might have the information from my Atari 2600 when I played Space Invaders, and they know how much my score was on that day in December 17th, 1978. So don't hold me to it, but I'm thinking Google knows that stuff too.
So what you're saying is that your score was lower than what you were telling your friends.
Oh, you know what? You always got to bump it up a little bit when you brag. You know? Yeah, but I wasn't rich like you guys. You know, Sarah, you weren't even alive for it. I didn't have an Atari, Don.
My brother had an Atari. So
I had a Sears video game system.
A what?
It was the Sears knockoff of Atari.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh!
The only one I
remember having.
Gotchis to tires to the fridge. You know, and in your 70s, kid. What color were those fridges and the stoves, Don? Harvest Gold.
Harvest Gold, or
it was Harvest Gold.
Harvest Gold. What about the green one? Olive green. Olive green.
No, I thought it was avocado.
Oh, maybe. Maybe it was avocado.
You did way too many drugs in the 70s. You don't remember. You don't remember.
Yeah, but Sarah, you may not know this. I'm sure you do, Eddie. Sears they were a catalog company originally. They used to sell houses.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you know you can still buy houses on Amazon?
Really?
It's crazy.
You mean the housing kits?
What do they call them? The small houses or the little houses, whatever they call them?
Tiny homes?
Tiny homes.
That's what it is. I knew it was something like that. Thank you, Sarah. And you didn't even have to Google that. You had it in your brain, girl.
I did.
I'm so impressed. You're so smart. That's smart. She's a pretty smart girl.
I do. You just got to ask the questions that I know. And I know some random facts.
Well, I kid you about the show, but it's a lot of good information. And it's a lot of good history about it because if, we forget history, we repeat history. So I really like the show. First show of the week. Tune in on Wednesday and Thursday for insurance viewers' questions on Wednesday, and then Rock and Roll Thursday with Donnie Lowe. Woo! So we're going to end this show like we always do. If you like working with people that are just like you, we're the people to see. www.ediagency.com or hotline 716-306-2020. If you're trying to get a hold of Sarah, you can either call the hotline or you can look at our partner page.
I'm number one.
Yeah, she's right there. She'll tell you that all day long. She's number one.
All day long.
So, Brady Buffalo, Donnie Lowe, and your buddy Sassy Sarah, tune in tomorrow for viewers' questions. We got some doozies.
Yeah.
All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Bye.